What happens when two young legends collide before the world realizes they're legends? On November 15, 1988, a 25-year-old Michael Jordan stepped onto the court and made one thing very clear. Yeah, the Sixers had Charles Barkley, but they also had a problem. MJ was about to make Barkley, Maurice Cheeks, and the entire city of Philadelphia feel every ounce of it. This wasn't a finals game. This wasn't a playoff game either. But more importantly, this was the night the world realized Michael Jordan wasn't just a superstar. He was the future. In 1988, the NBA was shifting. Yeah, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were still giants, but the future, it belonged to a new generation. Jordan and Barkley, both drafted in 1984, both 25 years old, and both already reshaping their franchises. Barkley was the post-Dr. J torchbearer in Philly, Jordan the rising god of Chicago. On paper, that duel was just a regular season game in November, but in reality, it was war. The Sixers came stacked. Cheeks, Hawkins, Jaminski, and Barkley. But the Bulls had one man on a mission, a young, relentless Michael Jordan. Already MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and already playing like he was tired of waiting for a ring. It's 1988. The regular season has just begun. The Bulls finally broke the 50-win barrier during the previous season. They also managed, for the first time in the Jordan era, to win a playoff series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. But the aspirations of one-time MVP Michael Jordan went far beyond that. Although his supporting cast was still not up to par, MJ had enough talent to carry that one-man offense. But Philly, man, that was a tough team. Because the Sixers were not your average NBA team. Just 5 years earlier, they had been crowned champions with an iconic generation. Now Charles Barkley was their leader. The team had rebuilt in record time, and it looked like the forward was going to lead them back to the promised land. Now, there was no doubt that if they wanted to achieve that, they would first have to get past Michael Jordan. And man, that was going to be a lot harder than they thought. On November 15, 1988, both MJ and Charles would try to prove it. The stakes were high. At stake was the responsibility of leading the new generation of the league, which would be taken over from Kareem, Magic, and Bird. At stake was becoming the new face of the NBA, a league that was about to explode worldwide. And in front of the expectant, jubilant fans who filled the stands of Chicago Stadium, an iconic duel was about to take place. The television showed the Sixers starting five, clearly led by Charles Barkley. But there was nothing like the Bulls' introduction when they played at home, as they came out to the music of the Alan Parsons Project. Hearing that song at Chicago Stadium gave anyone goosebumps. Phil Jackson, then assistant coach to Doug Collins, took the opportunity to give final instructions to a team that needed every win possible if they really wanted to compete for the title that season. Seconds later, Michael and Charles respectfully bumped fists. And finally, Derek Stafford tossed the ball into the air to signal the start of the game. The die was cast. The first to break the ice was actually Charles Barkley. His power in the low post was incredible. Charles didn't care that he was an undersized forward. He played well above his size, as we can see in plays like this. But Michael Jordan soon joined the party. After stealing a pass from Mike Jaminski, MJ took off at full speed on a fast break to finish with an easy dunk. The defenders don't even bother to follow him. I mean, they already knew, right? Now, if Charles had been under the basket, things might have been different. Because on the next play, Barkley emphatically rejects Sam Vincent's layup attempt. Of course, MJ wasn't intimidated by that block on his teammate. Moments later, after a great cut, the North Carolina superstar receives the ball in the paint and finishes with a fierce dunk. And that's not all. On the next trip, Jordan once again shows why he is unstoppable. First, he bumps Hersey Hawkins to create enough space to receive the ball. Then he goes left into the baseline to finish with another incredible dunk over Charles. We're in the first quarter, and MJ has already dunked the ball 3 different times. Michael continued to use the off-ball screens that his teammates were setting up for him to get open at the top of the key. From there, he always had several options, although more and more he opted to just let it fly. Of course, on this occasion, he knocks down the long two. Just as Jordan used his extraordinary first step and incredible agility to create space in the paint, Charles used his brute strength. He was incredibly strong, and without fouling him, it was very difficult to stop him. This play is a great example. While Barkley wasn't known as a shooter, he was capable of knocking down middies when left wide open. And those baskets allowed the Sixers to stay ahead on the scoreboard for much of the second quarter. So Mike got back to work. If you've seen some first 5 videos, you know that Jordan loved those semi-transition situations. When he got the ball there, the double threat of drive or shoot was too powerful. So on this play, after a nice pass from John Paxson, Michael decides to shoot over his defender, draining the long 2. However, that's not the only time Jordan teamed up with Paxson. On the next play, after a give and go, Michael uses his creativity to create a shot from 18 feet, also using Dave Corzine's screen. But that's when he surprises everyone by banking the shot. Problems? No. Michael always found solutions. Answers. Now, few plays show his determination like the one we're about to see. Look at Michael fighting with David Wingate for position for practically an entire possession. Shoving, fouls, lots of contact. But he doesn't stop asking for the ball. Again and again. Why? Because when the rock reaches him, the job is done. With a turnaround jumper, MJ gets his bucket. That night, Michael was trying everything to get past the Sixers. He even created his own shots over and over again. Look, he brings the ball up, then blows by Hersey Hawkins, and then knocks down the 14-footer from the low right block. Unstoppable. And on the last play of the fourth quarter, Jordan strikes again. This time it's against Charles Barkley. Mike goes to his left, loses Charles on the screen, and then finishes at the rim with a left-handed layup. Now, despite his incredible display in the first 24 minutes, the Bulls are only winning by 3 points. The game is far from over, and it'll be the second half that decides the duel between the 2 players destined to lead the NBA of the future. 24 minutes to go. During the break, Michael realized that he couldn't carry the entire offense for 48 minutes. He needed his teammates to start warming up, and there was no better way to do that than by finding them looks himself. Look at this play. He grabs the defensive board, then goes coast to coast between all the Sixers defenders, and then finds Horace Grant with an amazing pass for the easy dunk. Moments later, exactly the same thing happens again. MJ grabs the rebound, goes into transition, and then drives to the rim. The only difference is that this time he draws the foul to go to the free throw line. However, that third quarter was a great display of his court vision, because Jordan teamed up with Grant again with a great pass for an easy basket just moments later. The entire offense was flowing around him, but so was the defense. Hawkins was having a night to forget, being locked up by MJ on the other side of the court. And I don't blame him, because that's something that happened to almost every player in the NBA. Even when it looked like he had gotten past him, Michael managed to get his hand in to deflect the ball. Plus, when it was his turn to attack, Jordan couldn't stop moving. Always cutting baseline, asking for the ball, and looking for opportunities. Until suddenly, boom! He received a pass generated by his incredible off-ball movement. Easiest 2 points ever. The third quarter was a demonstration of what a nightmare it was to chase Michael through all the screens. His IQ made him the best decisions. And again, this time Horace Grant manages to find him on one of his cuts for an easy dunk. The 5th dunk of the night, by the way. The worst part is that you didn't just have to watch the paint. You also had to pay attention to his mid-range. When Mike got a few inches away, he was going to shoot over you, and you could be sure he was going to knock down the shot. He was simply unstoppable. For that reason, when Jordan attempted any move, the defense was constantly alert. This allowed him to drive, make the defense collapse, and then find an open teammate. This time it's John Paxson who benefits from the enormous gravity of the Bulls superstar. Of course, the skilled Charles Barkley was quick to show that he also knew that technique. But Jordan responds immediately on the other side of the court with a deep long 2. Michael had been tormenting the Sixers all night from the mid-range, and yet they made the huge mistake of leaving him wide open. Jordan was not going to forgive them. There was no mercy in this game. Despite Charles Barkley using his physicality to get to the line, earning up to 8 free throws during the first half of the fourth quarter, the Sixers were on the verge of being knocked out. Because if there was one thing Jordan also knew how to do, it was to make his way to the free throw line. It was the only way to stop him from scoring points in twos. At least this way, he would have to do it one at a time. It had reached a point where the Sixers were sending a double team on MJ on every possession. He took advantage of this to find John Paxson again wide open in his best spot. But the double teams weren't enough to stop a player who had learned to manage the tempo. He was able to accelerate, slow down, and fool the defense all in the same play. And by the time everyone realized what was happening, the game was all but over. Michael Jordan had destroyed Charles Barkley, and the Bulls had destroyed the Sixers. MJ had done something more important than winning a regular season game. Yes, that victory put the Bulls on the right track if they wanted to enjoy a deep playoff run. But that night, he proved much more. With a performance of 33 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 steals, along with great efficiency, Michael proved that the future of the NBA was already written. It was his, not Charles Barkley's, not Hakeem Olajuwon's, although, well, Hakeem could have a word, right? The point is that MJ proved that no one could follow in his footsteps, and in less time than anyone thought, he would lead the Bulls to become the most powerful dynasty in history. That night, it wasn't just about buckets or stats. It was about legacy. In one game, Jordan claimed the future of the NBA in front of the world. For anyone who watched it, especially those from Chicago, Philly, or beyond, it was clear. A new king had risen. The torch was directly ripped from the hands of the old guard. And from that moment on, basketball would never feel the same. Not for the fans, not for the league, and especially not for Charles Barkley. Now here's the real question. Was this the moment Michael Jordan officially took the crown from the NBA's old guard? Or was Barkley still a threat to the throne? Drop your take in the comments. And was this MJ's true arrival as the face of the league? Or just a warning shot? If you were watching back in '88, what do you remember about this game? If you live for legendary breakdowns, epic rivalries, and the moments that made basketball history, subscribe to First 5 Hoops and join a community of real basketball fans. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.